Chapter 444, he only coughed out some blood and fainted. Sasuke and Boruto left the Uzumaki compound with dazed expressions a while later. The image of his mother frantically running after Yuna with a flushed face repeatedly played in Boruto's mind, and no matter how often he tried to push it away, it quickly returned. He was pretty sure that he won't be able to look his mother in the eyes from now on. Sasuke wasn't exactly in good condition either, as the image of two deep purple eyes that were looking at him like he was prey repeatedly appeared in his mind. Well, that and all the other absurd things he had seen today. While both of them were deep in thought, the duo heard a wretched chuckle before an old man bumped into Sasuke. "Oh, sorry, lad, I was just at a good part and lost focus for a moment. Or rather, I focused too much, he. Instead of answering, Sasuke looked at the old man in bewilderment. He wore cargo shorts, a pink aloha shirt with intertwined female symbols, sunglasses, flip-flops, and was currently reading a very suspicious-looking book. And most important, Sasuke couldn't feel the old man walking up to him at all. Has another monster appeared, or was I simply too distracted due to all the nonsense I went through? Despite his mind going through another turmoil, Sasuke answered the old man. "Don't worry, since nothing happened, it's fine." The old man nodded his head with a calm smile and looked at the duo for the first time, immediately causing his eyes to sharpen a little. "Just out of curiosity, who are you two? I have never seen you in Konoha before." Obviously, the old man wouldn't ask every random person who he couldn't remember who they were, but Sasuke and Boruto were both rather conspicuous. Sasuke currently wore an eye patch to hide his Rinnegan and even had a missing arm, while Boruto's blonde hair was very noticeable as well. Sasuke was surprised by the slight shift in atmosphere and decided that the old man in front of him definitely was no pushover. "Haha, we are just traveling performers wandering the elemental nations." The man's eyes sharpened even further when he heard Sasuke's words, as he easily saw through his lie. "Oh? Is that so? Then what were you doing in front of the Uzumaki compound?" "It's no big deal. The matriarch of the Uzumaki clan, Yuna Uzumaki-sama, saw our performance and invited us in for a private conversation." As soon as Sasuke said that, the atmosphere shifted instantly. The sharp glare the old man was directing at Sasuke vanished instantly and was replaced with a look of pity. A grandfatherly smile appeared on his face as he patted Sasuke's shoulder. "My condolences." Sasuke was taken aback by the sudden mood shift, but before he could say anything, the old man continued speaking. "Don't worry, you will soon come to accept the insanity in your heart and make it part of you. Only by accepting what you have become can you continue growing further on your path." "Huh?" Naturally, Sasuke was confused by what he had just heard, but before he could ask any questions, the old man had already walked past him and was vanishing in the distance. "What the hell was that about?" "Sasuke-san, I think I know who that was." Sasuke frowned when he heard Boruto's words as he glanced at him. How in the world could Boruto know about this weird old man? "Okay, who do you think that was?" Instead of answering Sasuke's question, Boruto pointed at the Hokage mountain. Or, more precisely, at the third face from the left. Sasuke's eyes looked at the mountain in confusion, but a moment later, his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. He repeatedly kept looking from the mountain to the old man in the distance, and moments later, the man's old face overlapped with the third's. That was actually the third. What the hell did Yuna do to him? While Sasuke's cries of despair echoed over Konoha, Yuna appeared in the Hokage's office. To Tsunade's credit, she didn't even flinch and continued doing paperwork. "I have something somewhat important to report." Instead of answering, Tsunade gave Yuna a short grunt and continued working. Yuna considered the grunt as her having Tsunade's attention and continued speaking. "A time-traveling alien from the future will appear in Konoha in 3 days." Tsunade paused her writing for a short moment, and after a few seconds of pondering, a deep sigh escaped her as she focused on Yuna. And I assume they won't be friendly. Correct, the guy is after the Kyuubi. Tsunade snorted in disdain when she heard that. Here's my condolences. So, anything else? Yes, a group of time travelers already appeared. It's Sasuke from the future and the son of Naruto and Hinata. Tsunade raised her eyebrows at that. Hinata and Naruto? Where did that combination come from? Well, apparently, I don't exist in their timeline and... Bang! Tsunade explosively stood up and smashed her hands on the table, turning it into dust instantly. She looked at Yuna with deep red eyes brimming with greed. Can I go there? Can they take me with them? Pretty sure they could, but you do realize that you won't have access to my alcohol if you leave this timeline, right? A conflicted expression appeared on Tsunade's face, and moments later, she fell back on her chair with a defeated look. Haha, isn't it fine, Tsunade? Sasuke should be ready to take over your position soon, right? Hope returned to Tsunade's eyes when she heard Yuna's words as she eagerly nodded her head. Frankly, she didn't expect things to go this smoothly, but it seems like Sasuke's actions over the course of the last few days were perfectly tailored for making him more popular. He was constantly wandering around the busiest place in Konoha, the Uzumaki compound, with a contemplating face. He would occasionally look at the compound's main building with determination before switching mood and walking away, just to do the same a few hours later. Frankly, Tsunade was half certain that he went insane, but she didn't mind at all. She kicked the propaganda machine into gear and spread rumors that Sasuke was very mysterious. He was searching for inspiration for a new jutsu by looking at one of Konoha's oldest buildings and other nonsense like that. The people loved it. After all, Sasuke was very mysterious to those who didn't know every detail about him. He left the village 3 years ago and was branded as a traitor, and then he suddenly returns with outstanding achievements and is recognized as a hero. That's right. Just you wait, Hiruzen-sensei, soon I will live the same carefree life you have. Surprisingly, no answer came from her couch, shocking her a little. Despite that, she realized something else. Wait a moment. You said you didn't exist in that timeline, so that means those two never had contact with you. Don't tell me. I may have accidentally dealt some mental damage. So you shattered their minds, huh? As expected. You are exaggerating. I mean, Sasuke coughed out blood and fainted, and Boruto, Hinata, and Naruto's son can probably never look into his mother's eyes ever again, but it really wasn't that bad. Right. Surprisingly, the fox and human were in sync for that retort. Chapter 445, Naruto gets assassinated. 3 days passed since Sasuke arrived at the different timeline, and Inoichi, Ino's father, was currently walking through the T&I building. Today he had very little work to do, which immediately caused him to be in a good mood as he leisurely walked towards his office. However, his mood dimmed a little when he saw one of his subordinates frantically running towards him. People running around usually meant trouble. Inoichi-sama, there is something that I should probably report to you. Probably. Why would you say probably report? The person in front of him awkwardly started shuffling around as his eyes wandered here and there before refocusing on Inoichi. Well, it's just a rumor, but I think this might be something Inoichi-sama should know about. Inoichi frowned a little when he heard the word rumor. As someone whose job had a big deal of information gathering in its job description, he knew that most rumors contained at least some truths. His job was to always stay calm and rationally identify what is genuine and false. Well, this rumor is personally related to you, so I hope you can keep your calm when you hear what I'm about to say. Inoichi scoffed in disdain when he heard his subordinate's worries. He has been in the business for a long time now, so how could he lose rationality over a mere rumor? Out with it. When the other person saw that Inoichi was getting annoyed by him, he couldn't help but lower his head as he started speaking. There is a rumor that a young boy with blonde hair and whisker-like birthmarks has been wandering around the Uzumaki compound. The boy apparently looks very similar to Naruto-sama. Inoichi's subordinate sighed in relief when Inoichi didn't immediately go on a rampage and seemed to calmly assess the situation instead. He lifted his head up to meet Inoichi's eyes and "Hi-yi!" immediately screamed in terror with a high-pitched voice. Currently, Inoichi's face had minimal features that could be considered human, as everything was twisted into a demon-like appearance filled with nothing but wrath. "I see, so that beast has not only defiled my daughter but has even cheated on her. Inoichi-sama, please calm down. These are just rumors." "Yes, I agree, the only viable solution is immediate execution. Please listen to me, Inoichi-sama. Yes, you are right, I should definitely torture him before killing him. Inoichi-sama. Yes, torture and then death. Inoichi-sama. Death." Before his subordinate could say anything else, a war cry left Inoichi's mouth as he jumped out of a nearby window to hunt down Naruto, leaving his sweating subordinate behind. I think I just messed up. I hope Naruto-sama won't bear a grudge against me." A shiver went through his spine as his thoughts wandered to the various prank seals the T&I department was using as torture devices. Very effective torture devices. Meanwhile, Naruto was strolling through Konoha with Ino and Haku by his side. All three were a little excited about the soon-to-appear enemy, as Hisoka had sold the Otsutsuki clan as something like the true big evil. "I will skin you alive, you damn beast." While they were walking, the trio heard a somewhat familiar yell, causing Naruto and Haku to smile wryly while Ino blushed in shame. "I wonder what it is this time. I bet Nasan egged him on again. You bastard did not only defiled my angel, you even cheated on her." Question marks popped up above Naruto's head when he heard Inoichi's words, while Ino and Haku both glared at him, causing him to shrug his shoulders. "You two should know that I wouldn't cheat on you. We all know how father-in-law can be, so I bet there is another misunderstanding." The duo pondered for a moment before nodding their heads. Inoichi was one of the highest ranks in the T&I department, so he had significantly more information than an average shinobi, which gave his words quite a bit of weight. Nonetheless, Ino and Haku chose to trust Naruto's words as Inoichi was indeed somewhat irrational when it came to Ino. Moments later, Inoichi reached the duo and glared at Naruto with crimson eyes. He would have already attacked if Naruto wasn't sandwiched between Ino and Haku. It was a familiar sight, but it still almost caused Inoichi to vomit out some blood. "You bastard, you already have 2 women, and now you are even cheating on them. Today I will definitely kill you. Father-in-law, I have no idea what you are talking about. Please explain what this is about. I definitely didn't cheat on Ino." "Well, I cheated on her with Haku, but that's a different matter." Inoichi's anger spiked even further, almost causing him to awaken the Rinnegan when he heard Naruto call him father-in-law while offhandedly mentioning that he was sleeping with another woman. "Don't play dumb. I'm fully aware that the child you had with another woman has been seen running around the Uzumaki compound." At first, the trio was confused, but moments later, realization kicked in, causing Naruto to facepalm, while Ino and Haku chuckled in amusement. Strictly speaking, Inoichi's words were 100% true. Naruto's child with someone who wasn't Ino or Haku was indeed occasionally walking around the Uzumaki compound, but the situation was slightly different from what Inoichi assumed it to be. "Please calm down, father-in-law. This is a misunderstanding. Look, Ino and Haku are even laughing about the situation." Some rationality returned to Inoichi when he saw his daughter laughing. Okay, maybe this really isn't as it seems. In fact, why wouldn't Ino be angry if a child Naruto had with someone else suddenly popped up? Additionally, I didn't hear how old the child is supposed to be. I might have reacted a little too impulsive. Well, it's my subordinate's fault for telling me to go and kill Naruto immediately. When Naruto saw that Inoichi was slowly calming down, he sighed in relief and walked towards Inoichi. He put his hand on his shoulder with a broad smile on his face. "Come, father-in-law, let's find a restaurant and eat something. My treat." The truth is actually quite an exciting story, so allow me to tell it to you over a meal. A deep sigh escaped Inoichi's mouth as he nodded his head. Obviously, he still didn't like Naruto. He never would. But he at least acknowledged that Naruto made Ino happy and that he was a good influence on her. He would even say something along the lines of Naruto being able to protect Ino, but he felt like that would be an insult to all the effort Ino put into getting stronger. Naruto inwardly sighed in relief when the situation was diffused without bloodshed, but unfortunately, someone had other plans as Yuna suddenly appeared, determined to assassinate her little brother. "Yo, Naruto, have you seen your son Boruto?" The rationality Inoichi managed to rebuild was annihilated instantly. A crimson glow returned to his eyes as he slashed at Naruto with a kunai. "Die, scum. Father-in-law, calm down. I swear this is a misunderstanding. Enne-san is just messing around. Die. Die. Die." Despite Naruto's attempts to calm him down, Inoichi ignored him entirely and continued the attack, forcing Naruto to run away. "You will pay for this, Enne-san. Have fun, Tilda." While Naruto was yelling at her in anger, Yuna happily waved her hand at him, while Ino and Haku could only helplessly stare at Naruto. "Oh, Ino and Haku, sorry for ruining your date. I'll compensate you at a later time." As she said that, she teleported away, leaving a wryly smiling Ino and Haku behind. They glanced at each other before shrugging their shoulders as they continued their shopping trip. Meanwhile, Sasuke felt like he had become someone else due to all the absurdities he had experienced. For example, there were 2 instances of him rounding a corner and suddenly getting a cake smacked into his face. What was even more surprising was that no one who witnessed that scene seemed to react to it, seemingly finding the situation normal. He witnessed his younger self walking up to the Uzumaki compound with the desire for revenge burning in his eyes before turning around and walking away, with his tail between his legs. As far as Sasuke remembered, young him never backed down when it came to his revenge, so he was really wondering what Yuna did to him to act like that. Sasuke also had a brief encounter with Nagato of all people, almost causing him to have a stroke. After all, Nagato was the leader of Akatsuki and the one responsible for destroying significant parts of Konoha at one point. Although Sasuke had never met him in his timeline, he had at least seen a picture of him. Sasuke got curious why he was here, and after asking around a bit, most people either didn't know about him or were confident that Yuna bullied him into switching sides. If it were 3 days ago, Sasuke would have scoffed at such a ridiculous idea, but after 3 days of absurdity, he believed it without a second of hesitation. It's Yuna, after all. He received another rather heavy hit to his psyche when a young brown-skinned woman and a weird-looking turtle approached him. Considering how innocent she looked, Sasuke falsely assumed that she wouldn't say anything ridiculous before she straight up asked him what double penetration meant, her eyes still gleaming with innocence and curiosity. At first, Sasuke wanted to just run away, but he felt somewhat bad about that, so he decided to simply explain it. Frankly, that might have been the most shameful minute of his life. Obviously, Sasuke wasn't the only one to receive some mental damage, as he and Boruto once walked in on Yuna pressing Hinata against a wall and forcing herself on her. Sasuke was pretty sure that Boruto's future interactions with his mother would be rather awkward. Moments later, a hand landed on Sasuke's shoulder, almost causing his soul to leave his body. "Yo, Sasuke. Ursha has arrived. His name is Urashiki." "That's exactly what I said, let's go already." Before Sasuke could argue further, Yuna teleported both of them away, leaving a dumbfounded Boruto behind. "Hey. What about me?" Splat. Chapter 446, Urashiki Utsutsuki. A man with grayish-blue, unkempt hair appeared on the outskirts of Konoha. He was standing in midair, had pure white skin and a pair of horns that wrapped around his head. Currently, both of his eyes were pure white, the Byakudan. This man was Urashiki Utsutsuki, and after looking around for a short moment, a sneer appeared on his face as he noticed the state of Konoha. Seems like I succeeded despite those insects' interference. Now, it is time to harvest the Kyuubi. However, a frown appeared on his face as he started looking around in confusion. Weird, did it suddenly get colder? Time, police. You're under arrest. Boon. A chakra-coated fist smashed into his face before Urashiki could understand what was going on, crashing him into the ground like a meteor. He quickly got out of the crater and looked at the person that assaulted him, Yuna, in anger. You will pay for. Giant Rasengan. While he was speaking, Naruto, who was covered in a yellow chakra coat with black stripes, sneaked up on him and tried to hit him with a Rasengan. However, just before the spinning chakra ball was about to crash into Urashiki, a sneer appeared on his face as his eyes turned into a Rinnegan. His eyes glowed blue for a split second and he suddenly disappeared from his previous position and appeared a few meters away from Naruto. Yuna landed next to Naruto and directed a sneer at Urashiki. Daring to use space manipulation in front of this great one. Come, I will show you the difference between heaven and earth. Naruto couldn't help but facepalm when he heard Yuna's words. He wasn't expecting her to enter old ancestor mode so early in the battle. Come, Naruto, let's party. Oh. Let's go. Yuna and Naruto both flicked their wrist, causing 4 kunai to appear in each of the duo's hands, which they swiftly tossed at Urashiki, making him sneer. Do you really think a bunch of toys can deal any damage to me? He casually moved his body a little, causing all the kunai to sail past him while his sneer widened. Pathetic, you can't hit me with something like that, for I can see the fudu. Ban. Yet again, Yuna's fist smashed into Urashiki's face, causing him to fly away like a missile. While he was flying, Naruto appeared in his flight path and was just about to smash a Rasengan into him when Urashiki's eyes glowed blue again, resulting in him teleporting behind Naruto. I got you, Jinchuriki. Naruto sneered in disdain as he saw Urashiki swinging his chakra-absorbing fishing rod at him. When he was about to be hit, Naruto switched positions with Yuna, who was already holding 2 ice swords, blocking Urashiki's strike. Naruto teleported to another kunai lying directly next to Urashiki while preparing another Rasengan and smashing it into Urashiki's side, sending him flying away again, as Yuna teleported into his flight path, preparing another attack. Meanwhile, Sasuke was standing nearby with his eyes bulging out and his jaw on the ground. At first, he thought that the first hit Yuna landed on Urashiki was just a lucky strike, but now he realized that that wasn't the case. He also offhandedly wondered where Yuna got her swords from. He had never seen a pair of swords that looked like they were made out of ice, despite having traveled to every corner of the elemental nations. The FCK. They are F-ing him up. Sasuke could only look at the scene in front of him in disbelief. Obviously, he knew that Yuna and Naruto were strong, but he didn't expect it to be this absurd. No matter how he looked at it, he expected this to be a tough fight. But now, it seems like Yuna and Naruto were overwhelming him by themselves. Suddenly, a hand landed on his shoulder, making him flinch. He looked for the hand's owner and saw Hinata looking at him with pity in her eyes. Don't worry, you will get used to it. Sasuke's eyebrows started twitching in irritation when he heard Hinata's words of pity. I don't want to get used to it. Wait for a second. If those two can really handle Urashiki by themselves, wouldn't that mean I came here in vain? I could be comfortably lazing around at home right now and nothing would change. Even more importantly, I would have never met Yuna. While Sasuke was having another breakdown, Hinata glanced at the battle and shrugged her shoulders. Well, I guess I'll join in as well. Huh? Seriously? Naturally, Sasuke was surprised by Hinata's words. After all, the whole battle situation was ridiculously chaotic, with 3 people constantly teleporting around. Frankly, even he himself wasn't confident he could successfully intervene in the battle. Naturally. I can't have those 2 hold all the fun, can I? As Hinata said that, the pigmentation around her eyes turned blue, while a thin film of water covered her body, causing Sasuke's eyes to widen. He could no longer feel Hinata's presence. If he weren't looking directly at her, Sasuke would think that nobody was there. Hinata dove into battle without another word. The only one who noticed her presence was Yuna. Naturally, Hinata wouldn't attack immediately. That simply wasn't her style. She would wait for the right opportunity and strike when she could deal the most damage. Sasuke looked at the other people standing beside him and immediately noticed that Anko was pouting in dissatisfaction. Her perception wasn't as good as Hinata's, and she couldn't teleport either. Additionally, she didn't have the patience to wait for the perfect moment to strike like Hinata, which would make the whole fight incredibly annoying for her, so she decided to sit this one out. Next, Sasuke's eyes landed on Karin. Frankly, he expected her to spectate the fight with a perverted expression, but there was a surprisingly severe expression on her face as she drew ridiculously complex arrangements of seals into the air. Sasuke felt like he would get a headache if he tried to understand what Karin was currently doing. Right, she was an Uzumaki as well. I really should ask Naruto to attempt learning seals. Finally, Sasuke's eyes landed on Ino and Haku, who also seemed to have decided to sit this one out. Neither of them was especially good at close combat, so they would rather not become part of the mess in front of them. A few seconds later, the seals Karin was drawing lit up, causing a smile to appear on Karin's face. I'm done, Yuna-sama. Yuna and Naruto teleported to the left and right of Urashiki, and while Naruto was going for another Rasengan, Yuna slashed at Urashiki with her 2 ice swords. Yet again, Urashiki's eyes glowed blue, the sign of him teleporting, but this time nothing happened. His eyes widened in surprise as he frantically jumped back, barely avoiding Naruto's attack, while receiving 2 minor cuts from Yuna's. He was just about to regain his bearing when his eyes widened in shock as a thin blade made out of water pierced through his body, barely missing his heart due to him slightly shifting his body to the side. I'm impressed you dodged that, Tilda. A shiver went through Urashiki's spine as he felt 2 pure white eyes looking at him with killing intent. The thin water blade was pulled out of his body, and before Urashiki could turn his head and see the face of the person who had just stabbed, her presence was gone again. Urashiki was terrified out of his mind. He almost died just now, and despite that, he didn't even know the face of the person who had just attacked him. She could be anywhere. Maybe she would go for another stab in the next second, or perhaps she had already left the battlefield. Urashiki felt like he was the prey someone else was hunting. He hated that feeling. His face twisted in hatred as a glint of insanity appeared on his face. Don't underestimate me, brats. Urashiki reached for the pot hanging around his waist, poured its content into his mouth, and swallowed it down. When Sasuke saw that, he wanted to run towards him and stop him from doing whatever he was doing, but before he could do that, Anko's hand landed on his shoulder, stopping him. What are you doing? We should stop whatever he is doing. Anko looked at Sasuke like he had just stirred his tea with a soup spoon instead of a teaspoon before shaking her head. Can't you see he is powering up? It's rude to interrupt someone while he is powering up. Sasuke looked at Anko in bewilderment and noticed that Karin, Ino, and Haku gave him the same look. The hell? Why are they looking at me like I'm the weirdo for not wanting my enemy to power up? Chapter 447, I need to get out of this timeline. Urashiki was angry. Very angry. So far, he had been toyed with the whole fight. His eyes granted him the ability to travel back in time a few seconds. When he first awakened it, he could only use it defensively to get out of sticky situations, but after acquiring considerable combat experience, he could travel back in time again and perfectly predict his enemy's movements, turning it into an offensive skills. This ability was the reason why he could dodge most of the attacks of the person he assumed to be Naruto so effortlessly. However, that ability didn't seem to work on the red-haired woman, whom he later found out to be called Yuna. Well, that wasn't entirely correct. The ability worked. He could still travel back in time as he wished, but no matter how often he tried to get an advantage over Yuna, he always failed. He adjusted his action to counter what she would do perfectly. She did something else. He did the same to counter her new actions. She did it again. Urashiki could not comprehend how someone could adjust their battle plans at such an obscene pace. Anyway, everything was still somewhat fine up to this point, but as soon one of the women standing on the sidelines yelled something about being done with something, things changed. Yuna and Naruto teleported next to him, which didn't bother him too much as he could just teleport away. However, the teleportation failed, resulting in a small moment where he was distracted. Despite that, he still managed to dodge the duo's attack almost perfectly and only received a little scratch. However, just when he was about to finish readjusting his mental state, he felt a powerful sense of danger washing over him, so he tried shifting his body away, just to have someone pierce a sword through it. This was where Urashiki finally snapped. He would take in as much energy as possible and force himself to evolve. First, he absorbed all the chakra he had stolen with his fishing rod, which he stored inside the pot hanging around his waist. However, he instantly noticed that that wasn't enough for him to evolve, so after a short moment of thinking, a mad glint passed through his eyes as he found the solution. Without a second of hesitation, he ripped his right eye out and swallowed it, quickly followed by his left. He felt power coursing through his body, making him smile. He succeeded. Oh. It's the start of the second boss phase. Let's see what it looks like, Nei-san. A white screen appeared in front of him, and as he passed through it, his whole appearance changed. Meh, the transformation scene was only SOSO. I'm not convinced either. That's a point deduction. Moments later, Urashiki emerged from the other side of the screen, revealing his new look to the world. Now, his face was almost entirely black, as only a few rectangular white places remained. Despite just having eaten his eyeballs, he got a new set, which were pure golden, while a third eye appeared on his forehead. It looked like a golden Rinnegan. Additionally, wing-like protrusions appeared on his head, while his overall look turned more avian-like. Meh, I'm not convinced of this design. At least he feels somewhat strong, Nei-san. Ha ha ha, time to beat all of you to death. I'm going to crush all of you to death. Everyone except for you, Naruto Uzumaki. I will capture you and slowly torture you until... While Urashiki was talking, Sasuke gave him a bland look. Can we attack him now that he has fully transformed? Yet again, the people around him seemed to be outraged by his words. Can't you see he is monologuing? Who attacks while the villain is monologuing? That's just awful. Okay. That's all Sasuke gave as an answer to what Anko just said. He had pretty much given up at this point. Hey, why didn't you take me with why? Splat. While Sasuke's face became emotionless, Boruto came running towards the spectating group, but before reaching them, another cake smacked him in the face, and he was teleported away. When Sasuke saw the teleportation cake, he only nodded his head in understanding. I see, that makes sense. Meanwhile, Urashiki finished his monologue and looked at Yuna and Naruto like they were ants. He propelled himself at the duo significantly faster than he previously could, causing Naruto to teleport away hastily. However, Yuna still stood in place with an unreadable expression on her face. Urashiki thought that she was incapable of dodging at this speed, but that notion quickly changed when he saw something that terrified him out of his mind. A grin. an inhumanly twisted grin that radiated insanity. Despite that, Urashiki continued his assault and punched Yuna, resulting in her casually lifting her hand. Urashiki's fist collided with Yuna's hand, which was now entirely covered in ice, resulting in a considerable impact. However, Yuna's body didn't move a single centimeter. "Oh? So you will torture my little brother, huh, insect? Guess it's time to take off the training wheels. I will teach you what it means to stand before this venerable one." Before Urashiki could comprehend Yuna's words, he felt like a train just smashed into his stomach, sending him hurling away. "Naruto, time to go all out." "Oh. I was waiting for this." As soon as Naruto heard Yuna's words, the yellow chakra cloak coating him was coated by another layer of rampaging wind chakra that tore apart everything it touched. Simultaneously, an ice armor started covering Yuna's chakra cloak as an enormous two-handed blade appeared in her hands. Additionally, although only Yuna noticed it, the water armor surrounding Hinata grew significantly denser as she activated her Byakugan, increasing her perception even further. Why can she use ice? As Sasuke saw Yuna's whole body getting covered in ice, cries of despair echoed over the battlefield. He fell on one knee while covering his mouth, coughing out some blood yet again. When Anko saw that, she could only shake her head. "Why have you still not gotten used to it?" "Because I don't want to." Although those thoughts instantly appeared in Sasuke's head, he decided not to speak them out aloud. "Damn it, why are you all?" Splat. Boruto arrived again, but this time a pie hit him in the face, yet again teleporting him away. Sasuke stared at what just happened with a blank expression. "I need to get out of this timeline." Chapter 448, or maybe not. When Yuna saw Urashiki Otsutsuki's new form, she couldn't help but smile. Although it looked pretty weird, the power he radiated was no joke. As expected, you can't entirely trust in the words of someone who knows the future. Hisoka described him as a pushover, but this guy is actually quite strong. This might be fun tilde. Yuna's aura exploded as a battle-thirsty grin split Yuna's face in half. When Anko, who was still spectating, saw Yuna's facial expression, she shook her head as a sigh escaped her lips. She snapped. A shiver went through Sasuke's spine when he heard Anko's short comment. Snapped. What exactly does that mean? Anko heard Sasuke's questions, but instead of just answering, she lifted her head and looked at the sky. It means that things are about to get dangerous. Sasuke mimicked Anko's movement, resulting in his eyes widening in surprise from what he saw. It started snowing. Meanwhile, Yuna shot toward Urashiki like a cannonball and slashed down her sword. Urashiki lifted his hand and created a black rod in his hand to block the blade, however. "You dare to block my blade, mortal? Ridiculous." And just as Yuna said, the black rod was cut by Yuna's sword as if it was made out of tofu, causing Urashiki's eyes to widen in surprise. He barely managed to jump back to dodge the blow, but when he did so, a chakra-coated fist brimming with wind chakra impacted his back, sending him flying away while leaving a few bloody gashes in his back. Hee, how about sitting this one out, Naruto? No way, you should sit this one out, Nei-san. During Akatsuki's invasion, I only got one, while you had the chance to fight 3. Isn't it time you allow your little brother to have some fun? 3. Nonsense. The first 2 were controlled by the third, and since he controlled 6 bodies in total, I only defeated 1/3 of him, meaning I only fought 1/3 of a person, and that person even surrendered in the end. Aren't you bullying me by depriving me of finally fighting a whole person? Naruto rolled his eyes, averted his gaze from Yuna, and focused on Urashiki instead. He knew that he couldn't win an argument against Yuna's shamelessness, so he decided not to even bother from the start. Meanwhile, Urashiki's anger grew even further when he realized that Yuna and Naruto didn't take him seriously at all. You damn insects, I will exterminate you. Amino Subarubo Shinomakoda, Gyoku, yes, that's the official name of the attack. The English translation is Heavenly Essential Wave Current Star Lord, Jeweled Box. Urashiki pointed his palm at Naruto, and moments later, a purple energy ball appeared on the front of his hand. With a burst of chakra, dozens of these balls suddenly shot from Urashiki toward Naruto in complex paths, causing him to widen his eyes in surprise. He did not expect to suddenly face so many attacks that were clearly homing in nature. Nevertheless, Naruto was not someone who got overwhelmed so easily, so he charged into Urashiki's attack without hesitation. He might be capable of powerful ninjutsu, but he was a close combat fighter at the end of the day. As soon as the first sphere was in front of Naruto, he punched it, causing it to pop like a balloon, and while Naruto continued running towards Urashiki, he dealt with the other projectiles in the same way. Urashiki sneered at him as he covered his hands with the same black substance he used to create the Road Yuna cut, and moments later, Naruto and Urashiki were engulfed in a close combat battle. Frankly, Urashiki found the situation favorable to him, as he had significantly more combat experience than Naruto. This is the first time he took this form, so he can't be sure about all of his abilities yet, but his close combat techniques were still usable. He expected to easily overwhelm Naruto, however. How can he possibly keep up with me? I probably spent more time honing my combat skills than this Brett lived in total. Meanwhile, Naruto was entirely focused on the fight. Additionally, if Urashiki could hear what Naruto was currently thinking, he might cough out some blood. He's really skilled, I'll give him that, but this is nothing compared to Nasan. Naruto was someone who fought by trusting in his instincts to a vast degree, and since he had more or less gotten used to fighting Yuna, Urashiki, who was less skilled than her, wasn't that much of a threat. The duo continued fighting back and forth, while Urashiki couldn't help but feel weird. After all, wasn't he fighting 3 people? Where are the other 2? After exchanging another blow with Naruto, Urashiki briefly let his gaze wander, and when he found what he was looking for, his mind froze for a second, which earned him an uppercut from Naruto. Urashiki was punched into the air, but instead of falling down, he started floating while looking at Yuna in hatred. She was currently sprawled on a couch, her head firmly placed on Hinata's lap. Hinata was stroking Yuna's hair with a happy expression on her face while occasionally feeding her some popcorn. Additionally, Urashiki could see another 2 women walking toward the couch from the corner of his eyes. "What are you doing?" When Yuna heard Urashiki's question, she looked at him with a bored expression. "I got excited fighting someone strong, but then he used a technique that was mainly just raw power, which is incredibly dull." "Oh, it had a nice name, though. Anyway, I got depressed that fighting you wouldn't be as interesting as I thought, so I'm currently getting pampered by one of my future wives while allowing my younger brother to play with you." Urashiki's whole body trembled in anger when he heard Yuna's words. Somehow, she didn't even see him as a threat and pushed him toward her brother as if he were a toy. "You insolent insect. I will kill you. Amino Subarubo Shinomakoda, Ryugo." Instead of the small purple ball that appeared during Urashiki's previous attack, a gigantic purple ball flew towards Yuna, followed by a massive serpent, causing her to sigh. "So you have chosen suicide, huh? Fine, this one will grant you your wish." Yuna's sword appeared in her hand again, but before she could do anything with it, Naruto, holding a huge black chakra ball that was surrounded by a ring of wind chakra blades, appeared in front of her. "Nasan, he is my toy. Don't break him." Yuna only shrugged her shoulders and opened her mouth, resulting in Hinata feeding her another piece of popcorn. Meanwhile, Naruto focused on Urashiki and tossed the ball he was holding towards him. Massive Bijudama Rasen Shuriken. Too short. Weak. Naruto ignored Yuna's comment as the 2 attacks collided. They contested with each other for a short moment before Naruto's jutsu broke through and engulfed Urashiki as he screamed in pain. Naruto's eyes widened and his chin hit the ground when he saw how easily he overcame Urashiki's attack. Yuna saw Naruto's current state of mind and chuckled in amusement. "Well, now you broke your own toy. How? A technique you had already refined for some time against an attack he came up with on the spot. The outcome is obvious. But I wasn't done having fun yet. Well, those Oitsuki are supposed to be pretty sturdy, so maybe he survived. Moments later, a small thud was heard as a body fell to the ground a few meters away from Yuna. Or maybe not. Chapter 449, Back to the Future. The spectators approached the trio as Naruto gave Urashiki's body a few nudges with his foot before shaking his head with a sad expression. Yep, this one is done for. How boring. Well, since he's dead, I guess we are done here. As Yuna said that, she drew a few seals and moments later, Boruto's tied-up body appeared on the ground. When Yuna saw Boruto's current state, she raised her eyebrow and looked at Naruto, who averted his head with a sheepish look. Hee, I accidentally used the wrong seal. Although Naruto wanted to restrain Boruto, he accidentally used the wrong seal, resulting in Boruto being tied up turtle bondage style. Do you use this on Ino and Haku? The trio's faces flushed crimson when they heard Yuna's question, and Naruto immediately answered Yuna. No. Oh, of course not. I would never use something like that. Ino and Haku nodded in approval at Naruto's quick denial. However, Naruto continued talking as a perverted expression appeared on his face. Hee, I would never do that, especially not with H. Smack X too. Before Naruto could say more, Ino and Haku slapped the back of his head, forcing him to stop talking. Unfortunately, it was already too late as Haku saw Karen was giving her a look of approval, causing her to blush even harder while directing a glare at Naruto, who could only cough awkwardly. Yuna wasn't surprised by Haku's preferences. She was reticent and had a calm personality. It's almost always the quiet ones that like to spice things up a little. Sasuke's senpoints actually saw a slight increase due to what just happened as the Naruto from this timeline finally did something that the one from his own would do as well, saying something stupid and getting himself in trouble. While Naruto was getting death glares from Ino and Haku, Sasuke decided to untie Boruto by simply slashing through the rope with his sword, and as soon as Boruto's hands were free, he removed the gag from his mouth and started speaking. What the hell? Why did you keep me away from the fight? While Yuna looked at him like he was an idiot, the other people gave him looks of pity, and Naruto hurriedly started talking to change the topic and to get out of his predicament. Sorry, but you are literally just a normal kid, and we were fighting someone that could blast a mountain into smithereens. The only thing you could possibly do in this fight is getting in the way. As for why it was okay for us to fight him, Nei-san and I are Jinchuriki. Sasuke got his cheat from the Sage of Six Paths, and the others can all use something similar to Sage Mode. Boruto's pout intensified, but he didn't argue further. Anyway, since the guy is dead, you could probably get back to your timeline, right? Sasuke's eyes shone in excitement when he heard Yuna's words. Yes. I can finally get out of here. Quickly, Boruto, take out the turtle and ask it whether we can go back now or not. Although Boruto was a little taken aback by Sasuke's frantic behavior, he still did what Sasuke asked him to and took the turtle that brought them here in the first place out of his pocket. Yo, is it possible for us to go back to where we came from? Before it answered, the turtle pondered on Boruto's question for a short moment and then nodded its head. Positive. I was not designed to travel to different timelines, but this is an exception. I can always travel to my home timeline, but that would mean it is impossible for us to ever return to this timeline. Yes. Excellent. Let's go. Ha, it's impossible to come here again. Everyone looked at Sasuke weirdly due to his sudden outburst. Everyone except for Yuna, who was looking at him with pity. Sai, as expected, you will miss looking at my peerless beauty. Don't worry, I will develop a method to travel to different timelines and visit you. Sasuke's face paled, and his whole body started shivering in fear when he imagined Yuna invading his timeline. Is this a threat? What do you want? A wide smile appeared on Yuna's face when she heard Sasuke's question as she flicked her wrist and made a few books appear out of nowhere. Excellent. I knew you would understand me. Give these books to Kakashi and tell him that he can make copies and sell them if he wants to spread the culture. Yet another timeline gets corrupted. A weird expression appeared on Sasuke's face as she took the books and looked through the titles. Garden of Lilies. The Fox Devours the Rabbit. What the hell are these, and why would Kakashi want them? Hee, you can read them as well if you want. Sasuke looked at Yuna weirdly before shrugging his shoulders. Frankly, if it was something Yuna gave out, he wanted nothing to do with it. As long as Yuna didn't come to his timeline, he was fine. Anyway, let's go back to the future. Yuna gave Sasuke a weird-out look before dismissing his words as a coincidence. Moments later, the turtle Boruto was holding started floating in the air as complex patterns appeared all around it. Sasuke sighed in relief when he noticed that Yuna made no attempts to get into the effective range of the time travel. However, a mischievous smile appeared on Yuna's face as an idea popped up in her head. Hey, Boruto. Boruto immediately looked at Yuna when he heard her call his name. However, he quickly realized that that was not a good idea as Yuna's smile widened. This one is for the road. As Yuna said that, she smacked Hinata's butt, causing her to moan loudly while simultaneously giving Hinata a deep kiss, resulting in their tongues wrestling with each other. Boruto flushed crimson when he saw the erotic scene in front of him as a bit of blood started flowing out of his nose. However, he quickly remembered that one of the people kissing was his mother, so he quickly averted his gaze. Yuna was satisfied with the first attack, so she quickly launched another one at Sasuke this time. By the way, Sasuke, I transformed you into a woman during the Chunin exams, and Itachi saw you in that form. He immediately started calling you his little sister and turned into a Siskan. Inai did. Sasuke staggered a little when he heard Yuna's words and fell on one knee while a trickle of blood started leaking out of his mouth. However, Yuna wasn't done yet. Additionally, during your fight with him, he got a nosebleed after seeing your succubus form, and you only got out of the Tsukuyomi because he got distracted by your breasts touching him. Following Yuna's words, Sasuke swayed left and right before coughing out some blood and fainting. When Enko saw that, she could only shake her head in pity. Why is he so stubborn? If he had accepted it properly, then the damage would be much lighter. Chapter 450, Assassination from Another Timeline. A groan escaped Sasuke's mouth as he opened his eyes. Are you okay, Sasuke-san? Ugh, not at all. Sasuke slowly stood up while curiously looking around. He sighed in relief when he realized that he was back in his own timeline. Thank God, we made it. No, it's too early to say that. There is still something I need to find out. Sasuke jumped towards the Hokage Tower without a second of hesitation, leaving a dumbfounded Boruto behind. Please don't be here. Please don't be here. Please don't be here. Sasuke chanted those words repeatedly as he entered Naruto's office and saw Naruto. Oh, there you are, sir. Before Naruto could finish speaking, Sasuke appeared before him and put his hand on Naruto's shoulders while looking him in the eyes. Naruto, this is very important. You must answer my next question 100% truthfully, okay? Naturally, Naruto was confused by Sasuke's weird behavior, but he nonetheless nodded his head in acknowledgement. Sure, what do you want to know? Do you have a big sister, Naruto? Question marks appeared above Naruto's head when he heard Sasuke's question. Why would he ask me such a weird question with such a serious tone? Especially a question he already knows the answer to. Not sure why you're asking me that, but no, I don't have a big sister. Sasuke's lips quivered for a moment as his knees fell to the ground and tears of happiness threatened to flow out of his eyes. Thank God I made it back properly. I managed to get away from her. Even more question marks appeared above Naruto's head, but before he could say anything else, some markings on Sasuke's shoulder started glowing, causing Sasuke's face to go pale instantly. No, this can't be. Please tell me it's not true. She won't be coming here, right? She won't. Sasuke, calm down. Tell me what's going on. The seal's glowing intensified, causing Sasuke's panic attack to become even more pronounced. He was just about to cut his own shoulder to forcefully disable the seal when the seal stopped glowing and activated. Splat X2. What the hell? Naruto and Sasuke both got a cake in their faces, and while Naruto immediately exclaimed in bewilderment, Sasuke didn't react in the slightest at first. However, he. Moments later, eerie chuckling left Sasuke's mouth, creeping Naruto out quite a bit. Sasuke, tell me what's going on already. Ha. Instead of answering Naruto, Sasuke's chuckling turned into laughter. Sasuke. Ha. And finally, Sasuke started laughing out loud like a madman. What the hell happened to you, Sasuke? When Naruto realized that Sasuke's mind was currently somewhere else, he gave up rushing Sasuke for answers while helplessly shaking his head. Whatever, I guess I'll just have to wait until he calms down. Around a minute later, Sasuke stopped laughing and stood up with a calm expression. However, Naruto immediately could tell that there was something slightly different about Sasuke. He feels more relaxed and free. Like a burden that was plaguing him is suddenly gone. I really wonder what significance that cake held. However, he has blood all over his clothes. This must have been a very difficult fight. Before Naruto could ask any questions, Sasuke started reporting what he had gone through in the past 3 days. I had a big sister. Naturally, this was the first thing that surprised Naruto about the different timeline. He doesn't have any siblings, and he really would like to know what it was like to have a big sister. Sasuke continued his tale and reached the next point in the report that got a reaction from Naruto. Hinata is part of my big sister's harem. Sasuke simply nodded his head while secretly enjoying Naruto's surprised reactions. You might want to talk to Boruto about that. He saw them making out. Naruto facepalmed as a groan escaped his mouth. Damn, why did that happen? That's really unlucky. Sasuke's eyes became empty when he heard Naruto's words. There was no bad luck involved. Huh? Naruto was surprised by what Sasuke said, but when he saw his empty eyes, he decided not to ask any questions. Sasuke recovered a few seconds later and continued talking. He talked about the Uzumaki compound and about the different fates of all kinds of people. And then, he told him about the other timelines Naruto. Ino and Haku. What the hell? Wait a moment, wasn't Haku male? Sasuke nodded his head and looked at Naruto with a somewhat judgmental gaze, causing Naruto to frown. He wondered why Sasuke was looking at him like that, and his eyes widened when he realized the reason. No, don't look at me like that. Whatever weird plays the other me is into has nothing to do with me. Sasuke coughed awkwardly, averted his gaze, and resumed talking about what he had experienced. After talking about the Uzumaki clan compound seals, Naruto confirmed that he had indeed never tried out learning sealing arts and said that he would give it a try. Finally, Sasuke talked about the fight against Jiu-Jitsu, and Naruto couldn't help but be surprised by the ridiculous skills that were on display. He was especially amazed by the skill Hinata showed, as her strength in this timeline was far from that overwhelming. Naturally, there was another point that bewildered Naruto greatly. Why can she use ice? No clue, but when I asked her the same question, she answered, if I couldn't use it, no one could. No idea what that means. Naruto slumped into his chair and sighed in relief. At least there were no causalities this time. Sasuke's eyebrows started twitching like crazy when he heard Naruto's words. No causalities. No causalities. What about my sanity? It was torn to shreds again and again without a hint of mercy. Isn't that a causality? Although those thoughts rampaged through Sasuke's head, he didn't say anything and simply nodded his head. After chatting a bit longer, Sasuke left the Hokage Tower. While Sasuke was walking through Konoha, he coincidentally met the person he was looking for. Kakashi, I've been looking for you. MHH. When Kakashi heard Sasuke calling him, he only hummed in acknowledgement and continued to read a small book, causing Sasuke to roll his eyes. He flicked his wrist, causing a stack of books to appear in his hand. I was asked to give these to you. Kakashi looked up from his book and looked at what Sasuke held with disinterest. Moments later, his eyes sharpened and he snatched the books from Sasuke's hand, put most of them and the one he was reading into his holster, and started reading one of the new ones. Thanks. Sasuke was utterly dumbfounded by what just happened. He knew Kakashi was pretty fast, but this was just ridiculous. He actually moved so quickly that even Sasuke couldn't react to it. What are these books? Meanwhile, Boruto had just returned home and was currently taking off his shoes. While doing so, a small seal on his shoulder briefly lit up without Boruto noticing. Oh? You are back, Boruto. Boruto sighed in relief when he heard his mother's voice. He had half expected Yuna to pop up somehow. I'm back, Kar-san. Boruto gazed at his mother, and moments later, the image of Yuna slapping Hinata on the butt while sinking her tongue into Hinata's mouth flashed through his mind, causing his face to flush crimson. Hinata noticed Boruto's flushed face and immediately became worried. Boruto, your face is all flushed. Do you have a fever? Hinata grabbed Boruto's cheek softly and held her forehead against his, causing Boruto to get even more flustered. Kar-san, please stop, I'm fine. MHH, at least you have no fever. Please tell me if you are feeling unwell, Boruto. Okay, I will do so. Hinata nodded her head in satisfaction before turning around and walking into the living room, closely followed by Boruto. The moment Boruto entered the room, he froze in place. A mature beauty with long crimson hair and blue streaks sat on the couch with a lazy expression. I am possible. When the woman saw Hinata, she smiled and walked toward her. Without a second of hesitation, she gave Hinata's but a crisp smack and a deep kiss. At first, Hinata was enjoying herself, but she quickly realized her situation and pushed the woman away. Why Yuna, not in front of the kids? Hee, isn't it fine, Tilda? It's just a little kissing. Why is she here? Seeing what happened in front of him, Boruto's mind took quite a lot of damage, and he was already swaying a little while a trickle of blood was oozing out of the corner of his mouth. A few seconds later, a cute little girl entered the room and hugged Hinata. Kar-san, I want to help you with cooking. Haha, of course, him a worry. Then, the little girl let go of Hinata and hugged Yuna instead. Can you cook with Kar-san and me, Yuna Kar-san? Yuna happily patted her head as a big smile appeared on her face. Of course, I will do it if my little girl wants me to. Then, Yuna's eyes landed on Boruto, causing a chill to go down his spine. How about you help as well, son? Son. That single word repeatedly reverberated in Boruto's head until it was too much for him. No. He fell to his knees, coughed out some blood, and then fainted. Around 5 minutes later, Hinata found an unconscious Boruto in the entrance hall. She instantly noticed that he seemed to be under the influence of a Jiu-Jitsu, which she quickly cancelled with a worried expression on her face. Why would someone put Boruto under Jiu-Jitsu and then leave him here? It's almost like some did that just to mess with him. How weird. Chapter 451, it's about that. A deep sigh escaped my Terumi's mouth as she was absent-mindedly sitting in her office. Today was the day the Cage Summit would be held, so Yuna would teleport over soon to bring Mai and her 2 guards with her. Her two guards, Ao, a middle-aged man with blue hair and an eye patch over his right eye, and Chojuro, a young man with blue hair, black eyes, and a giant sword strapped to his back, dutifully stood behind her while waiting for Yuna's arrival. Yet again, Mai sighed deeply. The reason for her sighing so much was her current relationship with Yuna. Over the course of the last few years, Yuna had come over occasionally to have another battle, but nothing more happened. Obviously, Yuna wasn't the person who prevented their battles from becoming more physical, but Mai herself. She just felt that doing that kind of thing with someone only half her age wasn't appropriate, but at the same time desired it, which was the reason for her sighing. Well, considering Yuna's past life, all of that was pretty much nonsense, but Yuna found Mai's struggle of desire versus reason rather amusing, so she didn't tell her anything about her previous life yet. However, Yuna did tell Mai how to cultivate already. At first, Mai found everything about it rather weird and only did it because Yuna asked her to, but by now she was hooked. Her significant growth and strength aside, Mai would continue cultivating no matter what for the beautification effect alone. She could pretty much feel her skin getting smoother every day. Meanwhile, Ao had a somewhat stiff expression when he heard Mai sighing again and again. By now, he had found out about Yuna's relationship with Mai and wasn't happy about it in the slightest. After all, Yuna was not only someone from a different nation but also a bringer of chaos. Who knew when a weird idea would pop up in her head and she would decide to blast Gri to smithereens? Yo. Are you lost in thought about how awesome this great one is? Ao and Chojuro both flinched when three people suddenly appeared in the middle of the room, making one of the new arrivals scoff in disdain. They still flinch when Yuna appears in the middle of the room without anyone detecting her. Pathetic. Yuna noticed the scowl on Tsunade's face and concluded that she must have thought something rude, but decided to ignore her and started walking towards Mai, who just stood up from her seat instead. Yuna, it's good to see you AG. MMPF. Before Mai could finish speaking, her lips were covered by Yuna's as they started kissing each other, causing Ao's frown to harden while Chojuro's chin hit the floor. Unlike Ao, he didn't know about Yuna and Mai's relationship. At the same time, Tsunade rolled her eyes as she casually took out a small bottle, injected chakra onto it to make it grow, and then took a heavy gulp from it. On the other hand, Hinata was pouting while throwing death glares at Mai, which she completely ignored. After kissing each other for a few seconds, the duo broke apart, and Mai's face immediately flushed red when she realized how many people were watching her kiss Yuna. Cough what? It's just a kiss, so stop staring. Anyway, let's go already. Mai tried to switch topics and somewhat succeeded since no one decided to say anything else. So, Yuna wrapped her hands around Hinata and Mai's waists while the others put their hands on another person's shoulder. Moments later, the room became void of people as Yuna teleported the group of 6 away. Meanwhile, back in Konoha, Ino and Haku were sitting opposite each other with serious expressions. Ino had called Haku into one of the secured meeting rooms of the Uzumaki compound to talk about something important. Although Haku wasn't sure what this would be about at the start, as soon as she saw Ino's facial expression, she could make a good guess about what Ino wanted. No matter how I look at it, it's too much, Haku. Although Ino's words were somewhat cryptic, Haku immediately understood that her previous guess about the conversation topic was correct. Sai as expected, it's about that, huh? Although I'm not happy about it, I agree. No matter how much our skills improve, we simply can't keep up, Ino. Ino nodded her head as a sigh filled with annoyance left her mouth. Sai, it's so annoying. Does it really have to be so abnormal? Haku shook her head with a wry smile and answered Ino's question. It is what it is. I think we both realized by now that there is only one solution, right, Ino? When Ino heard Haku's question, her face twisted in anger before quickly switching to helplessness. Moments later, another sigh escaped her mouth. Sigh, either that or we give up, and I'm unwilling to give up. This is the least we can do. Haku looked determined as she nodded her head with confidence. Yes, I fully agree. Besides, it's not like it will happen instantly. Ino mimicked Haku's facial expression and nodded her head as well. All right, let's do it. Suddenly, Ino slumped on her chair while holding her head. All the previous determination was gone within an instant. Ugh, this will be super embarrassing. Haku chuckled a little when she heard Ino's words. Frankly, she thought so as well. Yes, but we should do it anyway. The earlier we solve this, the better. As soon as Haku finished speaking, she started drawing a few simple seals in midair that vanished after a few seconds. She just sent a message over the Uzumaki clan's compound-spanning message system. Although she didn't have much skill in seals, the seals needed for the network to work were relatively simple, so even a non-Uzumaki could use them if they had the authorization to do so. I've called him, Ino. Prepare yourself. Ugh, I really don't want to, but let's do it. Chapter 452, Relationship Talks. Naruto couldn't help but get slightly nervous when he got a rather severe-sounding message from Haku. He tried to remember if he had done something wrong or maybe forgotten something important, but he didn't come up with anything no matter how much he thought. He had no idea what Haku wanted to talk about. A few minutes later, he reached his destination. He could have directly teleported to Haku, but that didn't seem polite. Well, Yuna did it all the time, but that was a different matter. Naruto knocked on the door, and after getting permission to enter, he opened the door and stepped into the room. He immediately noticed Ino and Haku sitting next to each other, and his first instinct was to sit down between them. However, when he saw the mix of unwillingness and determination on their faces, he decided to sit on the opposite couch. Hello, you two. You wanted to talk to me, what's wrong? The duo glanced at each other and nodded in acknowledgement. Moments later, Ino started speaking. What do you think about our nightlife, Naruto? Naruto was somewhat surprised by that unexpected question. He thought about the question for a short moment, resulting in the image of two naked women clinging to him appearing in his mind, causing a goofy expression to appear on his face. Hee, it's great. Ino facepalmed due to Naruto's expression. She thought that if she didn't make the question too direct, it wouldn't be that embarrassing, but that attempt clearly failed. This time, it was Haku who spoke. That's not what Ino meant. She wanted to know whether you are satisfied. This time, the image of two white butts pointing at him popped up in Naruto's mind, turning his goofy smile into a perverted one. Hee, satisfied. I'm very satisfied. Just like Ino before her, Haku couldn't help but facepalm as well. Ino took a deep breath to push down her embarrassment and started speaking again. Naruto, after we are done having sex, are your sexual urges sated? Naruto's face stiffened for a split second before a broad smile appeared on his face. Haha, so that's what you meant. Of course, they are. Why would I stop if they weren't? Why would you stop? For example, you would stop if you thought doing more would overtax Haku and me. Yeah, I would probably do that, but that isn't what's happening. Ino and Haku both stared at Naruto, who still had a broad smile on his face, looking like he was seemingly incapable of lying. Moments later, Ino sighed while rubbing her temple. Sai, when did you become so good at lying, Naruto? Naruto's face stiffened before a guilty expression appeared on his face. I'm sorry for lying, but well, you didn't want Ino and me to feel bad because we can't fully satisfy you. Naruto flinched when he heard Haku's words. That was indeed the case, but he would have preferred to say it in a softer manner. Ino could only shake her head when she saw Naruto's guilty expression. Naruto, this is not your fault. Naruto looked at Ino in surprise, and moments later, he realized what Ino meant and hastily started speaking. This isn't your fault. Yes, we are aware that this isn't our fault either. This is no one's fault. Or rather, isn't it Kurama's fault? Oi, tell that woman to leave me out of your lover spat. Kurama agreed. The hell? Ino and Haku chuckled in amusement at Naruto's blatant lie, and moments later, a stern expression returned to their face, causing Naruto to straighten his back. Okay, since we agreed that neither of us three is at fault, what did you want to discuss? Ino and Haku glanced at each other again, and when they saw the determination brimming in the other's eyes, they nodded their heads, and Ino opened her mouth. Despite it being no one's fault, Haku and I aren't happy that we can't fully satisfy you, Naruto. So, we decided that we would tolerate it if you took in another woman. Naruto's eyes widened in shock when he heard Ino's words. At first, he thought that Ino was joking, but after glancing at Haku and seeing that she seemed to be totally serious as well, he was utterly bewildered. That's not necessary, Ino, Haku. I don't mind being not fully state-I. Yes, we are aware of that as well. After all, you are someone who would happily sacrifice his own happiness for the sake of someone else. Naruto wanted to open his mouth and deny what Haku had just said, but he couldn't. After all, that was the truth. If he had to sacrifice his own satisfaction to make those close to him happy, he would do so without a single second of hesitation. Still, you were so vehemently against it, and I fully agreed with not expanding my girlfriends any further. Hell, I couldn't even believe that I managed to get both of you for a long time. Unlike Nei-san, I never aimed at having more than one girlfriend. Ino and Haku couldn't help but feel a little warm when they heard Naruto's words. In their opinion, most men would happily jump at the chance to get themselves another lover. Hell, it wasn't even uncommon for men in high positions to do so without the consent of the women they already had. They were pleased that Naruto clearly wished to cater to what Ino and Haku wanted. Despite that, Ino resumed talking. Naruto, it's not like we want you to take in any random woman from the streets. Unlike Yuna, who seemed to add to her harem somewhat randomly, we hope that you talk with us before making any decisions. Only if you find someone that both of us find agreeable will she be allowed to join us. Although Naruto clearly was still uncomfortable with doing something Ino and Haku might dislike, he decided to give up and nod his head. Fine, but I want you two to know that if you are unhappy with something, you should tell me no matter the situation. Both of you know that if I get attached to someone, it will be tough for me to let go, so talk to me as soon as possible. Ino and Haku both nodded with happy smiles on their faces. The duo stood up and sat down next to Naruto, eagerly grabbing his arms and pressing themselves into him. Basically, they managed to convey that they were okay with Naruto taking in another woman, but they would have a lot of control over who it would be. Naturally, they were still not entirely happy that another sister might join them in the future, but this was still the best outcome. Out of curiosity, how long do you think we would need to last to satisfy your sexual desire? Although Ino had already given up on conquering a stamina monster like Naruto, she still couldn't help but be curious. A thoughtful expression appeared on Naruto's face, and moments later, he started speaking. Honestly, I'm not sure. I assume you still remember our first threesome, where things got a little too wild. Ino and Haku both nodded their heads with a slight blush when they remembered Naruto attacking them like a wild animal in heat. Well, after we stopped, I felt like I could have easily gone again for the same amount of time. Ino and Haku both paled when they heard Naruto's words. The same amount of time again? Well, Haku and I might agree to an additional woman in the future. Alright, that should be fine. By any chance, are there any Uzumaki you took a liking to? When Naruto saw the duo suddenly acting weirdly, he could only tilt his head in confusion. Weird, why are they suddenly acting like that? Maybe I should have told them the truth that even twice the time might not have been entirely enough.